Blockchain is limiting and a dirty word to a lot of people. There's a very narrow group of individuals that like the word blockchain at this point. So we're expanding the scope to include things like AI, VR. I'm the new executive director of the FBBA, looking to continue and build on what's been done there. I mean, most notably the anti-CBDC bill that got on DeSantis' desk and signed. We are opening a new division called Florida Frontier Tech. So AI.
Something went wrong. Check your connection and try again.
Now she chimes in.
She chimes in.
So AI obviously needs some work.
We are here at day 3 of the Bitcoin conference in Nashville. I'm here with my friend Wesley. He has a new role and position that's very dear to my heart. And he is the new head of the FBBA, which is the Florida Business and Blockchain Association. So to take it from there, Wesley, tell us a little bit about the FBBA.
Yeah.
Introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Wesley Slimmer. I am also the president of the Bitcoin Bay Foundation, the first meetup to incorporate as a 501c3, managing the Tampa Bay area. And recently I'm the new executive director of the FBBA, looking to continue and build on what's been done there. I mean, most notably the anti-CBDC bill that got on DeSantis' desk and signed. And what I'm most excited about is the new initiative that we're doing there, and we are opening a new division called Florida Frontier Tech. The idea there is to bring in frontier tech, so AI.
Check your connection and try again.
Now she chimes in.
She chimes in.
So AI obviously needs some work.
Yes, the Frontier Tech division is going to be working on this.
Yes,
but these are emerging technologies,
right?
We're demoing, testing them out.
Yeah, and so that's the goal. Blockchain is limiting and a dirty word to a lot of people, whether you're in the Bitcoin space or in Normieville. There's a very narrow group of individuals that like the word blockchain at this point. So we're expanding the scope to include things like AI, VR.
These are all components of Web3 overall, right? So
yeah,
AI is part of Web3, and a lot of these new technologies are part of the next evolution of the web,
right.
The internet.
Right. Yeah. And so, the idea is to, continue to, make Florida the leader in this kind of technology. Today we've seen senators and presidential candidates and everyone talk about regulation and, making America the best place to be a Bitcoiner and all of that. So we're trying to make Florida the best place in America to be in this new tech wave.
Yes.
One of my side quests is to get more nuclear power into Florida.
Oh, wow. That's great.
So right. So, because you can tackle that from both directions. You have the Bitcoin miners that can, do constant demand response, so they can turn off and on as much as they want.
Absolutely.
And then also you have AI data centers that consume just exorbitant amounts of energy. And so if we can, just those two industries alone can incentivize, this new energy build out. The Tennessee Valley Authority president was down at Bitcoin Park yesterday talking. They are going to be trying to bring more nuclear power into Tennessee. I see no reason why Florida shouldn't be, doing the same. We are energy weak. We import most of our energy. Mostly it's natural gas. People say solar, but we're the lightning capital of the world too. So it's raining all the time. And I'm sick of seeing farmland and forests take over by solar panels, especially when we have 60-year-old tech that works better than the stuff we use today. So I'm really excited to, kind of keep pushing on that end. And the goal of, the Florida Frontier Tech is to pioneer individual rights in the digital age.
I love it. So a mission that's very dear to my heart. I guess tell everybody, what the FBBA is and just explain that organization, because a lot of people probably have no idea.
Yeah. So previously, the FBBA was bringing in blockchain and business, and it was a membership dues-based organization that would provide education to local politicians, and then state was the big focus, was on state politics. That's where we got the anti-CBDC bill,
which a lot of states then copied.
Yes,
which is perfectly fine. I mean, that was the whole mission. Right?
Oh yeah, no, I mean, and that's kind of the point with Bitcoin Bay, is to build a blueprint for creating a circular economy in the United States. So I'm all about open sourcing, and please copy away, iterate, change, correct. So we were focusing on specifically making Florida friendly for blockchain based companies. We have Byte Federal is a big Bitcoin ATM company in the area. The digital kiosk bill was a big one. There was the digital asset trust bill that we kind of helped kill, which would have made anybody who custodied any crypto have to register as a money transmitter business,
which is absurd.
It would have killed.
It just didn't make any sense.
No, and so I went to the Tallahassee Blockchain Day as a resident of Bitcoin Bay, telling them, like, look, we have individuals and merchants transacting with us. Like, you will kill our organization. This is already happening. There are hundreds of people, dozens of businesses making this economy happen. And like, if you pass this bill, you will kill this. Like, you will kill what we're doing here. And I think it was Paxos that was pushing that bill. And it's just more regulatory moat crap.
Yeah.
So what as much as politics is what it is, my hope is that we can do proactive, friendly regulation. You have the right to mine Bitcoin in Florida. You have the right to self-custody and run a node. You have the right to run and train your own LLM.
Yeah.
That was a big thing coming out of the Biden administration, was saying that if you have X amount of teraflops, it's weapons.
What they're talking about. That shit changes by the way. Exponentially increases in compute. New GPU comes out. It's just such ignorance. Not even doing the most basic due diligence on this stuff. It just makes no sense.
Right.
So, as a member of the FVBA, are we now going to be known as Florida Frontier Tech? Or is that the new name of the organization? Or is it going to be the FVBA with a Florida Frontier Tech subdivision? What are your thoughts?
So Florida Frontier Tech is going to be the new parent kind of brand.
Perfect. I like that.
And underneath that, we have the blockchain side of things. And so there's going to be, the AI and probably VR.
I think it's a smart decision. I like that, Florida Frontier Tech. I think it just it welcomes in more emerging technology industries, and right now with all of the crazy stuff that's happening in places like Silicon Valley in California, just the rampant, anti-business friendly policies, the anti-family friendly policies, all these different things that are just, there's tons of companies coming to Texas, coming to Florida.
Yep.
And selfishly, live it as a Florida resident and citizen. We want this business. We want these people to come to Florida. We have no state income tax in Florida. We have beautiful beaches, beautiful shores, and great governance, pro-freedom governance. So this is amazing, right? Let's try to. What are your plans? Have you reached out to any companies that are looking to leave Silicon Valley or anything like that? Is that even on your radar at this point, or are you kind of just? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so at the moment we're still doing kind of a handoff with relationships. That way, the relationships we already have built at the state level understand that, I'm the new guy. This is the new kind of thing when you see my name and hear this new Florida Frontier Tech, it's still the same thing we've been doing. It's still the same goal that we're working on. That way, there's a smooth handoff. We don't lose ground, which is a big reason why I wanted to do this, because I didn't want this to go away. 7 years have been put into building these relationships, creating this friendly environment that I just don't want to see that go to waste. So at the moment, probably for the rest of the year is just going to be reaching out, getting in front of everyone and be like, hello, I'm the new Sam, essentially. Big shoes to fill, and making sure that we're not losing ground there, and then that we can all kind of start moving in this new direction together. But of course, we want to come here. Wall Street's already fleeing to Miami. New York is, you hate to see it. What they're doing to themselves.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So, just being that place we can walk with open arms is obviously, what we want to do. So, right now it's, kind of making sure there's a clean transition. I am still the president of Bitcoin Bay. That is where the Bitcoin circular economy and adoption is going to live still. But, the more politics and kind of everything outside of that narrow scope is going to come into Florida Frontier Tech. So it's going to be good to keep things kind of siloed. That way we can attack things from all angles.
Okay. What's your I remember seeing on X a couple of years ago, right? Like Mayor Suarez was just like, people from Silicon Valley were posting, and he was just commenting on their posts and reaching out. He was responsible for bringing certain companies and stuff to Miami. With Florida Frontier Tech, what's our plan of attack? Are we gonna participate in that? Are we gonna try to do some of that?
Well, yeah, no. So it's gonna, guerrilla tactics work. Coming to events like these, going to more, I've been in the Bitcoin silo for the past few years. So broadening that scope into into filling this new role. But it'll definitely. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. So just kind of figuring out, seeing what everyone's been doing, and then how we can, merge that into what, we're trying to do now. And, some of the legislation I'd like to see passed would be like, just like Florida passed, that you can't be censoring Florida officials on social media or Florida citizens. Like, I don't want you to be able to harvest Florida IP addresses from data, in data scraping. I don't want you to, like, if this is a Florida citizen, like, you can't just
violation of
it's our privacy rights,
Absolutely.
So,
and it's crazy. We're like one of the only nations, from what I've read, seen. We're one of the few. We do have the Constitution, which stops the government from reasonable searches and seizures, and in my opinion, they violate that constantly. And they go to they think they have this big loophole where they can just go ask a corporation,
right?
And like, in my mind, that's still a search. They are seeking them out, searching for that information. I think it's still a violation, but that has yet to be challenged.
It's a private company, bro. They can do whatever they want.
Yeah. Well, no, the government can't go and ask for information on people. That is a search, right? They're searching for that information. I think, again, I'm not a Supreme Court justice or whatever, but that's my take on the matter.
And I don't believe that a private company can do whatever they want either. That's a bullshit, statement that I always hear. Like, oh, Facebook can, donate $20 million to this, to this election fund, and they can do whatever they want. I'm like, okay, no, like, these aren't, this isn't like, a landscaping company saying, I don't want to hire you because, like, you have face tattoos. This is like, like our, like, we have advertising IDs on our phones that is essentially, like, standardizes our identity across apps and websites.
It's wild.
It's obscene. It's honestly
obscene. People don't understand what's truly happening, and that's part of the reason for this movement. This Bitcoin and this technology was formed by a group of people, the cypherpunk movement, right? And we're all part of that, right? We all pro privacy, pro human rights, pro constitutional rights, pro freedoms, right?
Not as many as you'd think.
Well, you'd be surprised. People, a lot of it is people just haven't been educated on it, and they don't understand what's actually happening. They don't understand how bad and insidious it really is, because it's all happening underneath the scenes.
Right.
But I think if people really did understand, if we could, and that's my goal for the next couple of years, is I'm starting a new podcast called Cypherpunk.
Nice.
And
good name.
We're going to try to educate as many people as possible about really what is going on. So next week, my first guest is going to be Aaron Van Weerdum. He's one of the editors for Bitcoin Magazine.
Great.
And I think he's chief editor soon. But
actually, I just met him upstairs.
Yeah, really cool guy. And we're gonna go deep on his new book called The Genesis Book, which talks about.
Yeah, I did just meet him upstairs.
We're going to talk about all of the, innovations and technologies and cryptography that led up to the creation of Bitcoin. The cypherpunks and our movement, really, many of the cypherpunks are older, and they came in the early 90s before the internet infrastructure was really set up, but they saw the problems that you're describing today. Right? So the United States, back to that, and back to our state, there's no reason why we can't, the Ninth Amendment to the United States says, like, our rights as humans and citizens are so vast, and there's so many of them that they can't even be enumerated here. Right. So there's no reason why laws can't be passed to protect the privacy of the citizenry. And I think that should be done. Absolutely.
Definitely.
In my opinion. And hopefully we can push forward with some of that in Florida.
100%. And that's the goal, is proactive regulation, like just going on the attack.
Yeah.
The Satoshi Action Fund with Dennis Porter has been great doing that with like places like Ohio.
Been following his stuff.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I want to be doing in Florida. You have to go on the attack. If you're playing defense, you now have to undo legislation. But if you can get in there and say, no, you can't data mine our citizens here just because you have a 30-page terms of service to lock them into their pay. It's PayPal. You have a new terms of service update. You run your business on this platform.
Yeah.
And 3 pages just increase, where if you say something on Twitter, we'll freeze your bank account and seize your funds.
That's just crazy. It's
click OK to continue.
Or no, and you're fucked.
Yeah. Facebook actually recently, if for Florida citizens, said due to new laws from Florida, you now have to re-accept our privacy policy. It doesn't do anything. Like that regulation didn't actually do anything, because if you want to continue to use Facebook, you now have to agree to let them data harvest you.
Yeah. It's absurd.
Just because these new, like you have to opt in to letting them censor you.
Yeah.
Even though, because the state said you couldn't do it. Okay, well, they agreed to the new terms of service and said we could do it. But it's such BS, because if you can't read every terms of service.
Of course you can. I mean, these are interesting discussions to have, and really these are the things that I've really been thinking that keep me up at night, that I think about, and what is really the right answer here, and how do we protect people and help people protect themselves, right? And it's just very interesting conversation. So one of these days you're gonna have to come on the new pod, and we're gonna have to just dive deep on this stuff.
Happy to do it, and every now and then I'll come across like a service, and it's like, read our privacy policy, and it's like this long. And that's the whole thing. It's like, we don't data harvest you. We won't do it. And I'm like, wow, our terms of service, that's one page and I can actually read. I'm like, yes. Let me see. So it can be done. So like these things are possible. It's just the moneyed interest, the industry that's already here. They're not incentivized to,
it's the opposite incentive.
Right. I mean, like if it's free, you're the product is really what it boils down to. And I'm happy to pay $5, use a service to not be data mined.
I would feel the same.
Or like, you can stream sats like on Bitcoin. Like, I mean, so like fountain.fm is you can stream and earn Bitcoin while listening to podcasts. You load up 100,000 sats, and yes, it's custodial, but I mean, it's 100,000 sats, like you can put it there. And like, as you're using the service, it drains, and then you top it back up. I mean, that's what we do for our website hosting. We use Bitcoin for that. I mean, like we have the ability to do these things. It's just, there's a lot of old entrenched interests that we have to kind of navigate through.
And I think that is the transition from a lot of this Web 2 stuff to Web 3, right? Web 3 allows us to break away from a lot of it. It allows us to get some of the principles of one. Web 2 is really these giant companies that control these networks. Now Web 3 is, freeing in a lot of ways. There's these decentralized networks that everybody has a stake in, right? So some interesting stuff here. Let me bring you back real quick to the Florida Frontier Tech and FBBA. As a miner, I would love for it to be more practical for me to, mine in Florida. You talked a little bit about energy, and right now, it sucks. I have to go other places where it's economically feasible, right? I'm not super in the weeds on the energy landscape and any of your communications with bringing more incentives for business to Florida to consume energy, like clear energy. You want to do some of that. How early on are you in the process? Have you spoken to any officials about this? I was talking to I've been talking to Sam about this for a long time. Right? What can I do for you, Matty? What do you want, right? It's like, well, I'd love to be able to, do more mining in the state of Florida.
Right.
I'd love to help balance our grid more and do those types of things. Do my business here in the state that I love, and then the free state of Florida.
Yeah, exactly. So let's see, 2.5, 3 years ago, the original idea for our meetup was to we were looking at starting a hosted mining company, a Bitcoin mining company, so we could have our members be a hosted mining, because Compass was a disaster back then. So nobody wanted to do this. And so we wanted our members to be able to mine with people they can trust, or at least know where they'll be on Thursday night, if there's an issue. So, we were doing that, and we were getting decent progress at Tampa Electric Company, TECO, on doing demand response and load balancing. There's substations with extra power, consume it, sell it to us, but they just weren't ready to think about new rate schedules for a interruptible constant demand. They were like, okay, well, if you're a heavy user, this is what our schedule is. We're like, no, exactly. And I'm like, no, we're not a smelting plant. We want to come in here, and you have a 5 megawatt substation here. You're using 3.5. You need to be using all of it, and then you can turn us off whenever you need to.
Yeah.
And so we were getting a little bit there, but then the guy that we're working with transitioned, and the new old guy got put back in, and that. And then FTX happened, and nobody wanted to touch any of this stuff.
Yeah.
So, but basically what it came down to was since we import most of our power through natural gas, it's difficult to get sub 7 cent.
Yeah, you're at the whims of natural gas prices too, which is difficult.
Exactly. So we have to have new power generation. So most of our power is gas, I believe. With a mix of other stuff. We have 3 nukes in the state. I'm pretty sure they stopped. They didn't renew Turkey Point down in Miami, which is ridiculous. I mean, you're one of the biggest metropolitan things in America, and you're turning off the nuclear power plant next to it. I mean, New York did the same thing, which makes sense because Miami is perhaps the 6th borough of New York, but that's a whole other thing. So it's really just imperative. There's no other choice. We have to get nuclear power everywhere. Everywhere needs more nuclear power. I mean, freaking California, one of the largest economies in the world, has rolling brownouts.
Well, that's just a testament to how California is.
It's a choice. The decline is a choice. And that was where a lot of what Trump was, the red meat he was tossing to the crowd was, making us.
We need more energy. I mean, it's just a fact.
It's a fact. It's just a fact.
Bitcoin mining, which can help balance the green, provide incentives for green energy, or and also on the edge of both of these industries because we operate so ASICs and mining, as well as trying to break into the high performance computing game in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So they have different needs, but they both need a lot of. One's much more flexible on the grid. One's not so much.
Right.
But these industries are growing. This is for, like you said, this is frontier tech. Right. These are the things that will make America great.
Yeah.
Keep our status. We want to lead in these industries. Right. And Florida gets that right, and we're lucky to have people like you and Sam pushing innovation forward here. So
trying to, and what's the beautiful thing about these technologies is that they can incentivize the production of energy. It's super expensive to build out a nuke because of all the regulation, but then also all the transmission lines. So by the time the nuke is spun up and running, you now have to build out all the transmission. But if you can have a data center and Bitcoin mine on site, as that nuke is spinning up, you can be spinning up your consumption. And what I can see happening is you have these data centers that are 80-20 AI Bitcoin. The main purpose is to train and process AI models, but you have that flex load with Bitcoin because you can turn that on and off.
It just makes sense. So you still get that benefit of having some level of flexibility there for the grid, but you're still a high consuming user, and this is inevitable. Like Trump said in his speech, we need more. At least twice the energy, probably more than that. Honestly, I think he undersold that. How much energy is really going to be needed for this transition as we advance as a human species, right? As we continue to work our way up the Kardashev scale, as they say, right? Consuming more and more power. So
and as the neighborhood that the power plant is built for starts coming online, you start paring down the Bitcoin load. But now you're going to have data centers with neighborhoods. Because these things can incentivize this production. I mean, small modular reactors, molten salt reactors.
Small modular reactors, especially on the nuclear. 60 megawatt sites that can be repeatedly set up all over the place, and fascinating stuff.
And the thing about it is people are scared. Or the older people are kind of scared of this because we had Chernobyl and Three Mile Island and Fukushima. But I mean, those were light water reactors. And the reason why we went light water reactors instead of molten salt reactors back in the 60s is because you can make fissile material from a light water reactor. You make bombs. You can't make bombs with a molten salt reactor because it burns it down so much that it wasn't useful for the war effort.
And then, you're exactly right. And then there's technology too that really easy. If there's any other very efficient.
They're called inherently safe reactors. And it was I think it was MIT with one of the original molten salt reactors is there was a salt plug in the bottom that they would be actively cooled by the power generation by the plant. So if there was a catastrophic power failure, that salt plug no longer got cooled. It melted. It was already melted down. It's molten. And it melted down into a containment facility. And that was it.
Genius.
And when they were done for the day, they would just unplug the fan, essentially, and just let it cool down. And then they come back the next morning and dump it back in the top.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
It was insane.
I think that's the education is sorely. You get very scared, etc.
That was the first thing that radicalized me in college, was writing a paper on the next gen of nuclear power, and all of my sources were from the 60s, and all the technology was from the 60s. And I was like, what? I'm like, we could have had this, but instead we went this one that can explode and and is radioactive. I mean, you can burn the current nuclear waste in these molten salt reactors because they still produce heat. So you can dump the waste, burn it, and now it's not reactive for 100 years, 1,000 years. It's reactive for 100 years. So we have the technology. It's just, do we have the political will? Do the entrenched interests want us to have cheap power?
Those are two very valid points. Let me bring you back to Bitcoin. What, being at this conference, what stood out to you as the most exciting thing?
Honestly, I didn't get to see a single speech or anything like that. It's just been talking and working the meetup stand. Yeah. So okay. So the grassroots Bitcoin adoption is probably what's most exciting.
I think we're both excited about that as two people who run meetups in the state of Florida. So
it's great to see. We had a world map as our backdrop, and people were putting their stickers up for all the meetups, and it was just covered. So it's spreading. There's a meetup in almost every major city, so go find yours. It exists, and it's people that I was going to say aren't crazy, but
we're all. But as Donald Trump said so presidentially in his speech, we are the Thomas Edisons, the Henry Fords, the Wright brothers, the renegades, right?
Yep.
And we really are. I mean, we're blazing a new trail, and this is the frontier, right? And as the Bankless guys said on their the Bankless podcast, this is the frontier, and we're headed west, right? So.
Yeah,
not wrong.
Yeah, no. So I'm looking forward to seeing the communities continue to grow. That's where the rubber meets the road. It's not the Michael Saylor never move your Bitcoin ever, never sell it, never use it. It's like you get the institutions have moved in, and don't ever touch your Bitcoin. You'll be taxed. Don't ever spend it. Yeah. It's gonna be worth 10 times more in 10 years. And I'm like, if you have $65,000 in net worth, you are worth one Bitcoin. Is that all in Bitcoin? Is part of that in cash, in stocks? Doesn't matter. Whatever it is, that's your net worth in Bitcoin. So if you've got $20,000 in cash, $20,000 in stocks, and then the rest in Bitcoin, you have that net worth is protected in Bitcoin. Whatever money you're spending over here could have been Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So if you spend $1,000 in fiat on shopping or whatever, that could have been Bitcoin. So you are still spending your Bitcoin. People just they won't touch it. They won't. It's their precious.
Part of what I love about Bitcoin so much is that it's so many different things to so many different people, right? So like Michael Saylor, it's this treasury reserve asset, right, for his business, right? For the ETFs, it's a way for grandma and grandpa to get exposure to just add to the price, the underlying price of the asset, right? For us, it's like we're here for the ethos of decentralized.
I want peer-to-peer electronic cash. Do a Control F on the white paper and find digital gold.
I also love the digital gold. I love all of the aspects of it. So, but it's Bitcoin, right? It's different things to different people, and it is so many different things at once. Which is what really allows you to have a conference like this with 20,000 people here for different aspects. And I've interviewed so many of them. Right? It's exciting. From whether it's a privacy activist like Jameson or someone like you who's pushing the grassroots aspect and pushing the political aspect, right? Or somebody who's selling, brokering infrastructure around the Bitcoin mining community, right? Or someone who has a company that does, investing in Bitcoin, there's just so many different areas of Bitcoin. Whether someone's building a side chain on Bitcoin,
right?
There's so many different aspects. Bitcoin is so many things. Thanks for talking to me, Wesley.
Of course, I was happy to, man.